If we can learn to skate, there's lots to gain. Though it's true we often suffer pain, it takes much effort, that is plain, for the few of us who would find fame.
We first noticed we had squatters on our roof in late spring, when a pair of herring gulls took up residence and began building a nest between the chimney pots. Over the next week or so, we watched it grow in size. As construction work continued, the birds seemed keen to announce their presence with frequent outbursts. Eventually the female gull settled down on the nest, presumably to lay and incubate her eggs. Our first sight of chicks was in early summer, when two small heads could be seen reaching up for food. Then, as the days progressed, they became more visible as they grew in size. Down at ground level, the garden birds went about their own lives, while up on the roof, the young gulls were rapidly putting on weight. At 3 weeks, the chicks had reached the cute, fluffy stage as they grew more feathers and continued to increase in size. One parent was usually on guard at the nest, while its partner was away at the coast searching for food. At 4 weeks old, the twins had left the confines of the nest and were exploring the ledge around the chimneys. Scary. Suddenly, one day we realised that only the small one was still at the nest. What had happened to the other one? It seems that the larger chick must have fallen from the roof, but he seemed none the worse for his tumble and was happy enough preening himself on our neighbour's flat-roofed extension. 2 days later, the other chick was spotted clambering around on the sloping roof, 30 feet above the ground. Every time it lost its footing, the parent gulls screamed encouragement. Stressful times for the chick, for the adult gulls, and for those of us watching the drama. Shortly afterwards, both chicks were back together on the lower flat roof. Our neighbour told us he had to replace them a couple of times after they accidentally fell onto his garden, fortunately without harm. The parents were very protective of the youngsters at this stage, and we and the man next door sometimes had to take evasive action when we ventured into the garden. As the summer went on, the chicks seemed to be suffering badly in the heat, so a tub of fresh water was provided to keep them cool. The youngsters were now 7 weeks old and were not much smaller than the adults, but they still relied on them to provide food, which was regurgitated on demand by their persistent calling and posturing. Yuck. By now they were able to manage short flights to a nearby shed and dropped down to explore next door's garden. Longer distance flights soon took them to the flat roofs of the houses opposite. Up to this point, the parents were usually still nearby, but from now on, the youngsters were left more and more to fend for themselves. They seemed relatively tame and could often be coaxed down with the offer of food. I did manage to get one of them to take food from my hand, but not on this occasion. The two birds were often still seen together, but not for much longer, as they gradually flew further afield and sometimes stayed away for several days. At the end of the summer months, sightings of our two gulls were more infrequent, until, at about 14 weeks old, they disappeared altogether. We had become quite attached to our birds, and it was sad to see them go, but to avoid any more mess, nuisance and stress, the following year we put up a chimney cage. Our visit to Turkey was through the port of Kushadasi. The modern seafront and promenade takes the full force of the wind coming in from the Aegean Sea. Near the main harbour is the base for a small fishing fleet. The thriving town is very much tourist orientated, and is keen to present a modern image to visitors. This is one of the many Turkish carpet shops eager for us to place an order, although these embroidered bags did seem a more realistic purchase.
How much these are?
As in many foreign countries, the national flag is proudly displayed. The main visit during our day in Turkey was to the site of Ephesus, generally regarded as one of the greatest ancient cities of the Western world. A Greek town was first built here about 3,000 years ago, but most of the surviving structures date from the later Roman era, when it became their provincial capital in Asia Minor and main port on the Aegean Sea. Descendants of some of the original inhabitants still live here, and quite cute they look too, but I wouldn't like to risk stroking one. The two-storey facade of the Library of Celsus is the most imposing of the restored buildings. Built in honour of the Roman governor of Asia Minor who died in AD 114, it once held a library collection of 12,000 scrolls. To the right of the library, the Gate of Augustus leads onto the Sacred Way. At the far end is the Great Theatre. This originally held 25,000 spectators, and on our visit, a group of Japanese nuns was being entertained by one of their party, who demonstrated the superb acoustics. Our final view was down Harbour Street, which once led to the port. The city declined as the harbour gradually silted up over the centuries, and today the sea is several miles away. From the highlight, which was Ephesus, to a site which claims to be the final home of the Virgin Mary, and is a popular place of pilgrimage. This notice explains its claims to authenticity, and many visitors are undoubtedly in awe, but I wasn't convinced, sceptic that I am. Photography wasn't allowed inside the building, but postcards show views of the interior. Back at Kushadasi, Pigeon Island is a short walk from the town centre. The causeway connecting the island to the mainland is home to a small yacht marina. The island itself boasts a 14th century stone fortress and is also a popular spot for fishing. We were due to sail at 5 PM, so we made our way back to the ship. This had been our first visit to Turkey, and hopefully it wouldn't be our last.
Oh, there seems to be plenty of seats here after all.
I beg your pardon?
Only they said I had to bring one of these along.
Mr. Knox, to see Dr. Robinson in room 5, please.
Only this was the best sample I could manage.
On arrival at the impressive entrance to the centre, I had only a few minutes to see a little of the centre's glass display. Most of these items are the ornate result of glass blowing procedures. Some of the exhibits were larger than I expected, but first some local history of glass on Wearside before I'm treated to a demonstration. We're told that these old glass fragments were probably made on Wearside since Gallic times. Long blowing irons and these glass cutting shears have needed to change very little since. Whilst coal was plentiful here for the furnaces, Hartley Weir and Wood, originally the largest in the country, was forced to close in 1892 because of the foreign imports and strikes. Queen Victoria's Jubilee plate is dated 1898 and these rolling pins 1855. Lamps, valves and ornaments like this wing were all supplied. The noise draws us up towards the furnaces to see the glass being worked.
The wall in there, which contains 180 kilos of hot molten clay glass. Now, to get any colour into the articles that we make, we apply it in various manners. We've got some coloured glass here. This will be part of the stem. So that's the clay glass that's actually in the furnace. It's 1230 degrees in there, which is the gas and air fuel cylinder. Thinking ahead, how to get this off the iron eventually when it's finished. So he's just put a little cut in there just beyond the end of the blown iron. And that's for two reasons. One, to get it off the iron, that will eventually be the rim of the goblet. So it's a case of blowing it up, getting the correct size, thickness, and as it cools down you can see it's becoming clear now, because it's losing the heat rapidly. So the thinner it gets, the quicker it loses the temperature. So you'll see a pattern evolving, be able to do a little bit of work in the bench, and then back to the reheating chamber to generate the heat in there. So back on with the jacks. He's cutting that in, being careful not to cut it too tight, otherwise you can cut the air supply off. Now if this drops below 500 degrees at any point, it will crack. So you're working at a minimum temperature of 500 degrees. So the left hand's turning continuously to keep everything straight and simple. So as soon as Davy's ready, I'll start getting a series of bits with the little solid irons, and then start to form a stem, and eventually the foot. So as I stop turning this, Dave will grab it, the shears, two little loops on the end. As soon as he grabs it, I'll stop turning. So while Davy's working on that, I'll just get some more glass, take up those small coloured chips off the table there. Now if you use any bigger size chips colour than this, you've got to preheat it. Because these are so small, these just stick to the hot glass, and this will form a little decoration in the middle of the stem. Now because we're just picking this randomly, you're never going to repeat this. So Pierre's keeping the thin sections warm, just with a torch, till I actually melt this. And give it an overall heat to maintain the minimum temperature. Ready? Again, as soon as he grabs it, I'll stop turning. Here he's just keeping it warm, yeah? And again, I'll get another solid item with a little bit of glass, the same shape as the first bit. This is called an folio. It's just like a little hourglass. Create a nice little flat spot and pushing it back to the bat in the shape of an hourglass. And this will accommodate the foot. So again, just using the torch to stop the actual goblet cracking while the thicker sections cool down. Centralise it first, squeeze it together. Again, using the jacks to prise it out, and also the bat, just to make it nice and flat on the base. Now we've done all we can on the blown iron, so we're going to transfer it to another iron, so then you can open the other side, work on the rim. Again, just watching the temperature. And then Debbie attaches it to the centre. And a little tap. And off it goes. See where the heat's concentrated, which is the area where he's actually working, so the rest remains stable. How he angles his hand also determines the final outcome. And there we have the final product. One final overall heat. Now if we left this out in the open, this would just crack. So we've got to put it in an oven to cool down gradually. If you watch this screen here now, how weak this joint is, tap around the joint, the oven is set 510, 10 degrees allows you to open the door, so it doesn't drop below the minimum 500 degrees. That'll stay there for a minimum of 24 hours to cool down gradually. So that is the end of the demonstration.
And this is the beautiful goblet that I will enjoy using when I toast your good health. Cheers.
During the course of a Baltic Sea cruise, we spent the day in Germany, docking at the port of Warnemünde. Before we joined an afternoon excursion, we boarded a train for the 7-mile ride to Rostock to explore the city on our own. Although many of its medieval buildings were flattened by bombing during the Second World War, the city hall escaped destruction. As in many other towns in Germany, most of the buildings around the market square have been rebuilt since the war. The University of Rostock is one of the oldest in Germany, founded in 1419. After a quick lunch back aboard ship, we set off on our excursion by coach to Koolingsborn on the Baltic Sea coast. We managed to escape from a dreary lecture on the local history of the area over coffee and cake and headed for the nearby beach. A popular seaside town, Koolingsborn has a wide sandy beach with these distinctive covered seats which can be hired during the summer months. The rest of our party eventually joined us briefly in the sunshine before we headed back to the coach, pausing to allow this road train to pass. Awaiting us at the nearby railway station was a real train, which we boarded for the journey to our next place of interest, Bad Doberan. The trains on this 10-mile route are worked by large tank engines built in the 1930s. The line is single track for most of the journey, with passing places in some of the stations. Although the route was fairly flat, we did pass through some pleasant countryside as we headed inland. Arriving in Bad Doberan, the train travels through the streets, prompting stares from unsuspecting tourists, although the locals must be used to it. Incidentally, the Bad in the name of the place denotes a spa town and is not a put down by the local council. The minster here, constructed out of red brick, is regarded as a fine example of Northern European Gothic architecture. And inside was just as spectacular. The minster is the remaining part of a 14th century Cistercian abbey and is one of the most perfectly preserved medieval buildings in Germany. And so, back on the coach to rejoin the ship. We spent our final hour on the beach at Warnemünde, where we found hundreds more of the strange beach chairs. Apparently, these could be hired at a cost of €1.50 per hour. A music festival in the shadow of the distinctive lighthouse lent a happy atmosphere to the end of the day. After Germany, our final stop would be Denmark, before we headed back across the North Sea to the Tyne.
At the Attenborough Centre near Nottingham, This Wildfowl Nature Reserve was opened in 2005 on the north bank of the River Trent. The area, almost 550 acres, was only allowed to open after the visitor centre was placed at the site entrance to reduce any impact on the wildlife. These mute swans with their orange beaks and mallards are the most tolerant of people, with the Canada geese not far behind. The snow goose also enjoys the seeds the public can buy here to feed them. Bread is not allowed. This swan bit my bottom 4 times when I was bending down filming. When I turned, he looked up at me and I stroked his head. He didn't seem to mind. The mallards are our most common duck. The females are very plain compared with the brightly coloured males. I was looking forward to recording that spectacular mandarin after the Canada goose had moved, but I didn't see him again. They only became residents in Britain after escaping from collection. There were several young mute swans, not yet in full white plumage, swimming with their parent. Frequent small skirmishes occurred, nearly always between like breeds, and the young ones being rarely involved. Fortunately, although challenges were frequent, they were all settled quickly and without injury. After moving to the other side of the bridge, I found a beautiful red-crested pochard, and I was determined not to let him go far before filming him. I needn't have worried, as there turned out to be several, this one with his mate. The bridge entrance to the visitor centre is an excellent viewpoint. On the land side, coots mingle with swans and mallard. The other side is more wild, as proved by the sudden appearance of the Canada goose. As for me, I nearly fell off the rock I was standing on. There he is, strutting towards me. It appears to me that all these birds do is eat and preen themselves. Most of the wildfowl even lay their eggs on the ground. These small tufted ducks are aptly named as they have a silky, drooping crest on their heads. The male's plumage is black with white flanks, but the female's, like the one being chased, is brown with less contrasting flanks. The red-crested pochard, and it's ablutions time again. Unless in captivity here, they are rare, though the less flamboyant pochard with the black beak is a breeder in Britain. This red-crested pochard's beak is carmine red.
Two poses. Look.
This Egyptian goose is not native, although introduced in the south in the 18th century, and this is his mate. For a change, I think she looks better than he does. This snow goose from Siberia or North America is in choppy water on his way to one of the islands. To enter further into the reserve, we had to pass through the visitor centre, where there was first a natural history themed mosaic and a small garden with a pond, and this heron made of twigs. The centre has provided a hide and sandbank for sand martin, though we only saw a picture of some. From this point we begin to realise the scale of area with the interconnecting bridges between islands. Nesting boxes, the sandbank and breeding platforms are just some of the items provided to encourage over 2,650 species recorded here so far. Attenborough Nature Reserve is designated a site of special scientific interest, which gave us a lovely afternoon out.
Ach so, das Kreuzworträtsel. Ich mache gern Kreuzworträtsel. Now, I must think in English if I am to complete this crossword.
Ah, the senders of the first 3 correct entries opened. Each received £25. Das ist gut. So, van across, like champagne. Sparkling. Ah, too many letters. They call champagne bubbly. So like champagne, bubbling. Van down, beginning with B. Alcoholic beverage. Ah, that is simple. Bier. Das Bier. Mein Gott. This is a long one. 11 across, unexpected. Ah, it is 4 words. 3, 2, 3, 4. This must be one of those English sayings such as no man is an island or mind how you go. Bah, I will wait for some other letters to appear. Right, first post is at 9, which means I had better put on my skates. Right, all is done except for one. 11 across, unexpected. Put on something, run on something. 10 minutes. I'll soon be out of time. Ah, out. It could be out. Of course. Out of the... of course, Dummkopf.
Viel Glück. Good luck.
Morning, Mr. Zimmerman.
Good morning, Mr. Seymour. I see your team was victorious last night. 2 goals to 1.
Yes, completely unexpected.
As you English say, it was out of the glue.
I think you mean out of the blue.
I think I know what I mean, Mr. Seymour. Cheerio.
Out of the blue indeed. It doesn't make sense. No, it has to be out of the glue. After all, if you're stuck in the glue, then you don't expect to get out of it. The English don't know their own sayings. Out of the blue. Ridiculous. How can anything be out of a colour? Anyway, let us hope I win the £25. It will help keep me, as the English say, out of the red.
Oh!